Back here on HQ Spotlight. Remember when Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois last season and everybody was panicking? Well, Marcus Freeman and his squad never looked back, finishing the season 14-2, making their first appearance in a title game since 2012. And if we look at the upcoming schedule, no neutral site games on the books, 7 home games, 5 away games this season. Not easy, but not super hard, right? They have Miami, A&M, Arkansas, USC, but other squads have it a lot harder, right? So let's welcome in 24/7 Sports' Tim Prister and Chip Patterson here to talk about the Fighting Irish for the upcoming season. Want to start with the quarterback situation because they have a young QB, a redshirt freshman in Carr. He played one game last season. We saw him there versus Purdue. So, Tim, kind of give us a lay of the land of the QB room and how this team, as it is currently constructed, can build around a young quarterback.
Yeah, Marcus Freeman said it'll be an open battle with Kenny Mitchie, CJ Carr, and Kenny Mitchie as we sit here and anticipate. We anticipated being CJ Carr, and I think it's interesting because most people look at Notre Dame and they're projected in everybody's top 10, maybe even better. The schedule is more difficult than it was last year, but not overwhelming. I don't think there are too many teams that start at Miami and then play Texas A&M, but still, challenging throughout. But CJ Carr, I like all the pieces are around him. A great running back core led by Jeremiah Love, one of the best offensive lines in the country, one of the best receiving cores among Notre Dame and their opponents. Maybe a little shy at tight end, but so everybody is projecting Notre Dame in the top 10 with the assumption that the offense is going to be good and the quarterback play will be good. Now, CJ Carr has never thrown a meaningful pass, but I think that everybody around Notre Dame, including the media, the local media that's had an opportunity to see him practice, believe that if you're ever going to have confidence in a young quarterback to take this team through a little bit more difficult schedule, it's a guy of CJ Carr's talent.
Yeah, Tim, Jacqueline, I think this is important for big picture, for Marcus Freeman, for the Notre Dame program, because you have a choice. You can be a program that competes for national titles while just churning through your transfer portal quarterbacks, and you have some success with Sam Hartman. You have great success with Riley Leonard, making it all the way to the national championship game. But if you really want to build out that long-lasting, sustainable, national title competitiveness, you need to be able to have it with some homegrown talent at quarterback. Winning the recruiting battle for CJ Carr was huge for Notre Dame, and now after spending a little bit of time as a backup, getting accustomed to college, getting accustomed to the Notre Dame football program, now it is his time to take over. It's great that you've got Kenny Mitchie in case anything goes wrong, that you have that reliable backup in case of injury or other issues, but this is, for me, Notre Dame leveling up as one of those top programs in the entire country. No longer a spot where you just grab the portal quarterback du jour. No, this is a time where you've got it in-house, and that's going to help the quarterback recruiting down the line as well.
All right, so the QB room, that's obviously a big topic of conversation, and so is the defensive side of the ball, because they're bringing back some core nucleus players there, and Drake Bowen and Leonard Moore, but they have a new DC and Chris Ash after, of course, Al Golden goes to Cincinnati to work for the Bengals. So are you anticipating, Tim, a smooth transition under Chris Ash as the new DC?
Well, I think any coordinator in his first year has an adjustment period. Al Golden did. He was at Notre Dame for 3 years, and they had to adjust. First year, they were terrible in the red zone defense his first year. So a bit of an adjustment, but credit to Chris Ash. When he came in, he made it clear he's not here to try to reinvent the wheel. He's not bringing in Chris Ash's defense. This is Notre Dame's defense, and I think that was the right approach. They lost some great leadership. Jack Kaiser at linebacker, some core guys in the middle of the defensive line, Howard Cross III and Riley Mills. Benjamin Morrison was injured about midway through the regular season. They were fortunate enough to have Leonard Moore come in and play like an All-American, and Xavier Watts is gone as well, the former Bronco Nagurski Award winner. So they lost a lot, but they still have a lot. And I think Chris Ash's approach as it relates to, look, we're just going to build upon what we have. I'm not going to do anything crazy. He wants to be, he likes some subtle things about some defensive end alignment, funneling the play inside a little bit more, running plays inside. Nothing drastic and nothing that, any other defensive coordinator hasn't done. But Chris Ash is aggressive. Al Golden was aggressive. I think Chris Ash will maybe even be a little bit more aggressive in bringing people, and they have the people to bring.
Let's talk about Marcus Freeman, because he, as mentioned, leads this team back to the title game for the first time in a while. He has the most wins in his first full 3 seasons with Notre Dame. Of course, we heard his name being thrown around for some NFL jobs that were out there. Tim, where is he ranking for you right now in terms of college football coaches that are out there? It feels like he is just surging.
Well, he's definitely surging. I think everybody across the nation has stood up and took notice of what Marcus Freeman is capable of doing. But, again, he struggled out of the gate against some competition they should have beaten. They lost to Marshall. They lost to a really bad Stanford team a couple years ago. And then they lost to Northern Illinois, and they had to rebuild the foundation. I'm working on a story about, how he talked about having to rebuild the foundation after losing to Northern Illinois. Well, he did that. They won 13 games in a row. They beat Indiana handily. The score didn't indicate it, but in Notre Dame Stadium, the first game of the playoffs. Notre Dame hadn't won a major bowl in over 30 years, and they won a Sugar Bowl and an Orange Bowl within a week of each other by defeating Georgia and Penn State. Didn't have quite enough against Ohio State. I think Will Howard running the football was a bridge too far for Notre Dame that day. But there's no doubt about it. The great thing about Marcus Freeman is he learns from everything that he encounters, that he goes through with his team, whether it's negative or positive. He's a guy that's constantly trying to get better. He asks his team to choose hard to come to Notre Dame in the first place. So, everybody knows about Marcus Freeman now, and rightfully so. I think he is one of the great young coaches in America. And he's put Notre Dame back in the running to, along with a handful of other schools, to compete for playoff spots and national titles on a consistent basis.
Yeah, Marcus Freeman's a top 10 coach in the country. There's no question about it. One thing that I look at for Marcus Freeman is look at the run and who he beat. He beat Kirby Smart. He beat James Franklin. He went toe-to-toe with Ryan Day in Ohio State. And the things that I saw in that run, Tim talks a little bit about how they had to rebuild the foundation. He had to instill a mentality of relentlessness that team was able to overcome several season-ending injuries to starters on offense and defense. The next man up mentality that allowed Notre Dame to continue to not take another defeat all the way until the final Monday night of the season, that came from the top. That came from Marcus Freeman. And one last thing. When Brian Kelly left Notre Dame, a lot of the conversation was that Brian Kelly thought you weren't going to be able to win big. Well, Marcus Freeman very quickly has Notre Dame playing for national championships and going into the next season as a national title candidate. And Brian Kelly at LSU, still not quite there, looking for their first playoff spot. So Marcus Freeman has leveled up himself in our coach rankings at CBS Sports, but he has leveled up Notre Dame as well in the national conversation. Yeah,
just to piggyback off of that, Chip, right? If you're an independent, the path to get to the CFP, there's always a lot of conversation whether it's going to be difficult or what that really looks like, right? So let's go through the schedule. We want to get your schedule prediction. It opens up a little spicy. You got Miami, A&M. So what does it look like? How many wins does this Fighting Irish team have in your eyes, Chip Patterson?
I'll tell you, I got a little bit of a curveball in my game by game, but I feel great about my record. So I think 11-1 is where Notre Dame will land. I believe that they will be favored in all 12 games at kickoff of all 12 games. And I'm actually predicting a hot start where they come out of the gate more ready to go than Miami, which is transitioning to Carson Beck. More ready to go than Texas A&M, especially with that game being in South Bend. But I've got the loss with USC, and you're right, Jacqueline. It is spice because we don't know how much longer or how often USC and Notre Dame will play. Notre Dame will be a heavy favorite in that game. So I think that the Fighting Irish, they won't stub their toe against a Northern Illinois because there is no Northern Illinois. They won't stub their toe against Boise State. Put me down for USC as the one that knocks them off. But again, what I'm most confident in is that's an 11-1 record against that schedule, a schedule where Notre Dame will be favored in all 12 games.
All right, a 6-0 start to the season for Notre Dame, according to Chip Patterson. Tim, Chip, we certainly appreciate it. Talking about the Fighting Irish, the schedule prediction, and everything we can see from Notre Dame for the upcoming season. A reminder, they open the season on August 31st against Miami. You can hear more from Chip Patterson on the Cover 3 podcast. Chip and the crew always breaking down the biggest headlines in college football. You can download, follow, listen wherever you listen to your favorite shows, or you can watch right now by scanning that QR code on your screen.